One of the features of air and armor is that each national army is gifted one or more special abilities that reflects something they were particularly good at. The West German army, the Bundeswehr, is gifted with an ability that is termed Gegenangriff, which is the German word for counterattack. The way Gegenangriff works is that the NATO player can declare one West German hasty attack operation each turn to be a Gegenangriff. There will be a roll on the Gegenangriff table, but if the roll is successful, the NATO player can execute offensive fire first, and the Warsaw Pact player will execute defensive fire second, a reversal of the normal order. This allows the West Germans to pull off risky counterattacks and sometimes get away with them. So, in this example, the 57th Guards Motor Rifle Division has just finished its activation cycle. As part of its operations, it launched the 241st Guards Motor Rifle Regiment against Orlenbach and managed to wipe out the two martyr steps that were here, leaving just the last M113 company in that battalion surviving. The Warsaw Pact player lost 2 steps to defensive fire here, leaving most of the regiment in this hex. The reason that the NATO player did not retreat out of this hex is that he wanted to leave the Russians hanging out in the clear terrain so he could execute a Gegenangriff. So when the initiative passes over to the NATO player, he announces the activation of the 35th Panzer Grenadier Brigade. As part of his strike segment, he brings in a West German PAH unit and stops at 2 hexes distant to allow the Warsaw Pact player to execute flak fire, and executes a strike against this Warsaw Pact unit. The strike successfully inflicts 1 step worth of damage, but more importantly, disrupts the unit. And the helicopter goes back to the recovery box on the NATO helicopter track. During the ensuing operations segment, the NATO player declares that he is executing a hasty attack and that this will be his Gegenangriff for the turn. So he forms a task force. He indicates that these 2 West German Leopard 1 units will be participating and that this is the target hex. So he moves his forces up, consolidates them into 1 unit by transferring this step in here. And then there is no jamming, so he would normally proceed to the defensive fire call step, but because this is a Gegenangriff, he consults the Gegenangriff table instead. And we see here that if he can roll a 5 or higher, he will get to execute offensive fire first. If he rolls a 1 through 4, then the normal order of defensive fire first will occur. So in the event, he successfully rolls a 7, and so Gegenangriff applies, he gets to fire first. So he's firing with a grand total of 7 times 4 steps, or 28. Standard division by 2 knocks that down to 14. He rolls the die. He rolls an 8. 14 becomes 15, and that is precisely enough to claim all 5 of these steps, with a total of 15 hits absorbable, and so the entire unit is eliminated, because a disrupted unit cannot retreat from offensive fire. The Warsaw Pact player now gets to fire back with defensive fire. However, he has no units left to fire back with, and his DAG has already fired in the original hasty attack on Orlenbach, and so this concludes the operation with the NATO player demurring from actually advancing into that objective hex and exposing himself in the open. And that's how a Gegenangriff works.